Right. Good morning, mamas. If you are restarting homeschooling and feeling that mix of, okay, we're doing this again, and also, what if I mess this up? You are in the right place. Most moms aren't hesitant to restart because they're lazy or inconsistent or you're doing something wrong. And we have to restart. But sometimes because we have this tension of we're going to do more this year, um, it stops working after a couple weeks, and now we're like afraid to fail, and then we move into February and we're behind, and there's so many different mixed feelings that comes with restarting homeschool. So if you are feeling that, welcome. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're right where you're supposed to be. And so I hear a lot of questions over and over about restarting the year. Some of these things are simple. It kind of depends on your season as a homeschool mom. If you're only a couple of years in, you probably still identify as a new homeschool mom. If you're more seasoned, you're beginning to see the ebbs and flows and starting to understand yourself a little better. So it can vary the questions I get, but I often hear things like, what should our routine actually look like for homeschool? Or what do I do when my kids push back? Because a lot of times when we restart homeschool, our kids push back. And then, the curriculum question, right? Is this the right curriculum for us? Like, oh gosh, that's a question that will like never go away. Um, and then how do I restart again without burning out in 2 weeks, right? Because what I often see, the ebbs and flows in homeschool moms, I see that whole like, okay, we start in August or September and we burn out by October. And then we restart in January and we burn out in February. So let's avoid that. We're going to talk about some of these things today in our Q&A. And underneath most of our questions and our fears are really is one thing we often don't say out loud, and it's, what if I'm doing this wrong and it messes up my kids? Well, I like to quote Grant Cardone. If you don't know who he is, he's a billionaire who actually chose to homeschool his kiddos. And he said, you know what? Somebody's going to mess up your kids anyways. Might as well be you. So there's no avoiding messing them up, but we can still do it well. We can create a life for them that is done well. And guess what? You're human, and so you'll probably mess them up in some way. So pressure's off. It's going to happen anyways. Now, you might think I'm a little strange, but if we haven't met before, my name is Amanda Schenkenberger, and I just giggle because I have been on that roller coaster of being a homeschool mom, even though I am a second generation homeschooler, and I have wonderful and not so wonderful experiences of being homeschooled myself. I also went to public high school, and so I have a mix of both. And I talk a lot about my experiences in my book, Overwhelmed. Homeschool Mom's Rescue Plan for Peaceful Routines. And, I like to host these Ask Me Anything times on YouTube because you need somebody who's been there and who like understands what's on the other side. And if I'm being honest, my own experience, my early years of homeschooling were great, magical, amazing. And then when I entered my tweens and teens, things fell apart for a lot of different reasons. But I just glanced over here, and hey, guess what? Here's a picture of me, goth, with a shirt that says evil. Yeah, that's me right there. I think I'm 13. I think I'm 13 there. I went through a really, really challenging phase. 12, 13. Yeah, I think that's what that was. No, that must have been 13, 14. I think that was 13, 14. And lots of really, things that I would never hope on a teenager, like I experienced. And so when I say I've experienced the bad side of homeschooling, I'm not like that, like not exaggerating. And so now being an adult, homeschooling my own children and knowing what I've gone through, even in the ugly, we can rise above and come through. And as moms, all of those fears that we have about messing things up for our children, like as they grow and get older, yes, obviously we don't want to be intentional about messing them up, but as they grow and get older, like that, like they have the opportunity to overcome some of the hard things that were in their life and improve themselves and create something better for themselves, you know? And so sometimes we think what is happening today, if your homeschooling experience is negative, we feel like it's terminal, like everything's going to end. But that's not the case. I had felt that as a homeschool kid, like this day is terminal, but here I am, you know, how many years later with my own kids choosing to homeschool. So I just want to encourage you that underlying fear, number one, you're probably going to mess them up in some way because you're a human being. And two, even if hard things happen that are completely outside of your control, it's okay. Like you can walk with your kids through it and they can grow and rise above and become better and create even a better world around them. So I just want to encourage you again that sometimes I think we make ourselves like too powerful and we're like, I'm going to ruin everything for my child. Like they're their own person. They can make their own choices too. It's kind of up to them as well. Okay, that was not in my notes. But I just wanted to put it out there as I glanced at that picture. So here's as a second generation homeschool mom, here's some things that I've learned the hard way. And most homeschool restarts, right, where we're starting the year, don't fail because of bad routines or wrong curriculum. They usually fail because mom is trying to restart everything at once. Do all the things, right? Do all the things. So today, instead of trying to fix all the things, we're going to simplify and decide what actually matters now. And so I'll be talking a lot about the core four today as I answer your questions. So this is a real live Q&A. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for tuning in. Those of you who are joining me live. This is a conversation. And if you have questions for homeschooling, oh, hi, Amanda, so good. I'm so glad you're here. So if you have questions, feel free to start dropping those in the chat. I asked my moms in my inner circle to pre-submit questions. And my inner circle is just my newsletter list. I don't want to say just, like I pour a lot into my weekly newsletters to support moms. And so if you want to join it, it's completely free. I'm just looking for my link that I can share in the comments. But this is, I had, I think 10 different moms submit questions. So if you're here live, pop them in the chat. And if you're not already on my list, get on my list so that I just can really honestly be pouring into you every single week. So let's go ahead and get started with a question from one of my favorite moms. Her name's Rosemary, and she's a mom of many. And she asked, how do I get me back into the mindset of homeschool? They will follow, but only if I lead in a way they know I'm serious. So I think this is probably key for a lot of moms. And just like this mom, Rosemary, so many of the moms I work with and talk to, you guys are so kind and so gentle and so giving. And sometimes when you have that kind of disposition, which is an absolutely lovely disposition that I do not possess, your kids don't take you serious. And so there can be an extra amount of pushback when you say, hey, it's time to start, or hey, we're not going to do that. That's a no. And that's something. Oh, hi, it's so good to have you here. HJH. Let me know. How long have you been homeschooling? How many kiddos you got? That's great to have you here. And so if you have one of those really gentle dispositions, again, your kiddos are sometimes inclined, especially those of them that are more stubborn or just a little bit differently wired, they have this tendency that they'll push back on you. And what do? How do you lead from a place that they know you're serious. And one of the things I would number one say, like get yourself back into the mindset of homeschooling, is to remember why you're doing it, right? There are so many different reasons that each one of us has chosen to homeschool. And I, decided back in my high school years during my first public school experience, dude, when I have kids, I'm not sending them here. And there's a lot tied around that. And now, if I had not made that decision early on, I would be homeschooling now, because I live in the state of Oregon, and our public schools have some of the lowest test scores in the nation. And there are other political things going on that I don't agree with personally, that I don't want my kids exposed to, especially from young, tender ages. And so I would have chosen to homeschool anyways. So getting back to your why for homeschooling, because what this is going to do is like stir up a little bit of it's like chutzpah. Like it's going to stir up something, a little motivation, a little reminder, like, oh yeah, I'm homeschooling them because I wanted to spend more time with them, because I don't think my state is doing a good job of educating my children. Because maybe it's because your kiddo has a neurodivergency and you're like, oh my gosh, they cannot thrive in a environment that was not designed for them, right? So getting back to the reason you're homeschooling is what's important. And not just that reason, but if you've taken the time and developed a vision around your homeschool, a vision word. And this is something I teach in my book, and just about any kind of live training I do. I love to talk about vision, because vision has this power. It's kind of like goal setting, but intrinsic goal setting. And so it's something that's deeply important to you and will motivate you beyond what you thought you could do. And I mean, it's just so powerful. And so one of the simple ways I like to teach vision, because it can be a really abstract concept for a lot of people. It's not something that is talked about in, I would say, homeschool circles. It's usually the only place I've really seen it talked about in depth is business. But outside that, I haven't seen it talked about very much. And so this concept of vision, the way we can kind of tap into it is if you were to picture your dreamy homeschool day. And every once in a while, we might land on our dreamy homeschool day where, nobody's sick and everybody's like, yes, mom, loving school and enjoying it. And really picture that in your mind. And for me, like I'm picturing us outside, sitting under an oak tree, and we're like eating and laughing and reading. And the word that comes up that you would use to describe that dreamy moment, that's your vision word. So for me, usually that word is connection. And that word connection has completely changed the trajectory of my relationship with my kiddos and my whole household. And right now, we've been really more focused on peace. So the word that comes out for me right now is peace, but it's usually connection. And so allowing that word and your why for homeschooling and pairing them together, thinking, okay, remember, we're talking about, if you're just tuning in, I know some of you are just tuning in. We're trying to figure out how to get ourselves in the mindset to get back to school. So we remember our homeschool why, and then we're pairing that with our vision word. And we're really thinking about, okay, this is why I chose to homeschool, and here's what I want it to feel like. And again, it's usually like an adjective, connection, peace, joy, delight. There's so many, being present, like there's so many good ones. And pairing those together, it's like it turns something on in us as mothers and gets us motivated. So that would be like step number one to getting yourself back into the homeschool mindset. Really remembering your why and the feeling you want to create in your homeschool. I want to pop in over here. HJH, for some reason, that's really hard for me to say. You've been homeschooling for 5 years. You've got 2 girls, 13 and 11, both in 7th grade currently. That's awesome. So cool. Yeah, I'm so happy that you have found my videos. Yeah, with homeschool philosophy, right? There are so many good things that we can pull, and I'm kind of like a mix. You call it eclectic, but like Charlotte Mason esque and unschooling with a little bit of like classical education in there, but very minor, very very minor. Um, but beauty and love of learning and life skills and learning through life, that was what I got as a child, and it served me so beautifully through like just growing up and trusting myself in knowing how I learn and being able to do well moving forward with, whatever I put my mind to. So I love it. All right. So Amanda says, I do this every so often because you taught me to do it, but it helps so much for when I lose focus. With my business, the house, and homeschool, I drown sometimes, and it helps so much. Absolutely. There's so much that's pulling on our energy as homeschool moms, Amanda, that especially because I know you, right, with like ADHD and neurodivergencies, it when our focus is frayed, right? And our focus is frayed on all good things. These are all good things. But if our focus is frayed, we can't do them all well at the same time. And so one thing I like to talk about, especially if you are a working mom or even like you're like in charge of a co-op, it's still like, that seems like work to me because that's really tough. Like high five to any of you who are like running a co-op. You're amazing. Hold on. But when our focus is frayed, right, we need this unifying principle, especially as working homeschool moms, that brings everything back together and creates clarity for us. And so thinking about that, our why and our word, that can really help ground us so that we can move forward and create the life we actually want. And it is a dance. There is an ebb and flow. Honestly, I really think of it as a skill. And with any skill, it takes us time to learn it. And with a skill, if you think of this as a skill, focus being a skill, especially when your heart's involved, because there's one thing to focus on something that you like not attached to, but this is the thing that we're most attached to. Being able to ground ourselves and focus on something that we lead with our heart, it really transforms how we show up as moms and what we begin to prioritize as moms. And so again, I think it is just so powerful. And I've worked with Amanda quite often over the past year. Year and a half, we've worked together off and on. And so she's really familiar with this. But if you are not familiar with creating vision, I really want to encourage you to grab my book, because the first chapter is all about creating your vision. I go into depth in it there. And so it's amazing. Okay, great. Your name's Hannah. That's okay. No worries. It's just so funny. Like my mouth trying to HJH. It just doesn't come out well. So Hannah, it's wonderful to meet you, Hannah. I invited my members to come join us. Oh, that's so great. I think what you do is so important. Oh, I ran one for 3 months this year. It was wild. Oh, you didn't tell me about that, Amanda. I love it. If you all listen and do, I promise it will help you. Yes. Oh, good. You just started my book. Wonderful. I hope to this year do an audio book for it, because so many of us, because we're so busy and we're pulled in so many directions, having it be listenable is a lot more accessible. So that will be a goal, because I know sitting down and reading is not an easy thing to do. All right. Perfect. So again, back to Rosemary's original question. How do I get myself in the mindset for homeschool and lead in a way they know I'm serious? So again, I preface that if you have a gentle disposition, sometimes you have an extra struggle with your kids' pushback. And so you got to get yourself serious first, which is absolutely right, by remembering your why and putting your vision word together so that intrinsic motivation starts churning. And then the next step is for you to start simply. And I don't mean just simply start. start simply. And what that might mean is the first week you do one curriculum, right? You do, okay, we're just going to do language arts for this first week. And next week we'll do language arts and math. And then the next week we'll do, we'll add in whatever else we're adding in, but have a slow start that you can maintain. Because if we try to jump in feet first and do all the things, we're out of practice, they're out of practice, and there'll probably be a lot of time eaten up with pushback and trying to find the pencils and the organization and yada yada. Oh, I forgot we had this appointment, kind of stuff that goes on. And if we don't leave space for room to happen, which I call margin, if we don't leave space for margin, then the problem isn't in the plan, it's the acceleration of the plan. And it's like going, like, I'm going to go to the gym every single day, like so many people do at the beginning of the year. And then you get to the end of January and nobody's at the gym, except for the people who are already going. So again, start slow is my other tip there. So your kids know you're serious, because the completion of an activity tells your kids you're serious. And the completion of an activity in peace on your part, right? They might be like flapping all around like, oh my gosh, yesterday, y'all, my avocado child, I call him my avocado child because he's extra like guac. My avocado child, guac is always extra at Chipotle, if you didn't know. So he's extra and I love him to death, but he's very neurodivergent and he's challenging. And yesterday was a challenging day. However, our day went well. I lost my cool one time. But the rest of our day was calm. We worked through it, and I was able to hand he needed help with math, and I am, y'all, he's in 5th grade math, and I am struggling. So I had his older brother help him. I said, I just need you to help them. And him working with his older brother rather than me actually helped regulate him more. And so we left space for life to happen. All he needed to do was writing and math, and he finished it, and it's done. Now, everybody else, actually, with my kindergartner, we were on a roll yesterday. We did a science experiment. We watched something about cyclones. He'd been asking about cyclones. Then we did math. Then we did language arts. And gosh, what else did we do? We did something else together. And I was like, wow, high five us, right? So every kid's going to be different. And it's important that you just leave space. Because my goal, honestly, was let's do the science experiment and reading. And that'll be good. But all this other stuff happened too, because there was seamlessness happening. So again, start simply. And if there's room to tackle something else, great. If there's not, sometimes that initial start just needs the extra space to breathe, because my avocado guac kid, he was not going to get to anything extra. He just needed to do his core 2, math and language arts. Okay. So I want to go back here to the chat. Let's hear. Amanda, I said I would love to hear you narrate it. Yes, I will be narrating the book. I don't love the sound of my voice, but people listen to me, I guess. It's fine. It'll be fine. Let's see here. Your kiddo stopped liking math, so you ditched your math curriculum and officially started unschooling math. I saw your girl slowly stop liking math, and I knew I had to say that. Yes. So important. I love you listen to your intuition on that, Hannah. That's amazing. I'd love to hear from you in the chat about how you guys are unschooling math. That would be super cool. And I had somebody, a client, share with me honestly about, well, once our kids learn arithmetic, everything beyond that, and this is usually elementary, maybe into 5th grade-ish math, everything beyond that is kind of extra. And we don't use it in everyday life. Now, if you are going to be some kind of engineer or some kind of scientist or, something that's going to be deeply ingrained with math, yeah, it would be important for you to continue on. But general population, we don't really use math beyond 5th or 6th grade math. And she's like, so once my girls understand math, basic arithmetic, we might stop unless they want to keep going. And I kind of like had to pause and check myself because I was like, oh, because we've always been pushy on math. That's one of those things. One of those like classical education pieces where I'm like, you always do math, always do math. And it caused me to pause and think about my motivations of why I push math. And honestly, my boys love math. Like I was just sitting on the couch with my second born this morning and he was like muttering to himself. I said, what are you saying, bud? And he goes, oh, I'm just doing some math in my head, keeping myself busy. I was like, wow, I would never do that. Never. I would not think about doing math to keep myself busy. I would rather go to the dentist. So clearly they enjoy math. All right. Amanda said we came back yesterday, but only math, not full, and reading a book until we are settled. I love that. Yeah, Amanda just moved. So, I mean, there's a lot of things up in the air. There was no pushback at all. Oh, I love it this morning. Already done. Perfect. That's great, Amanda. That's the kind of start we want. Honestly, about the book in the last year after your free live. Oh, there we go. We're not boring to listen to. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Hannah shared, I'm focusing on math life skills, percentages, perfect, mastering math facts, reading graphs, statistics, and understanding what fractions are. These are great. I will be using a cartoons guide too. Oh, I've not heard of this, Hannah. This is so interesting. I'm going to have to look that up. If you like have a link to it, please put that in the chat. Another, if you haven't heard of it, another great life unschooling approach to math is called Life of Fred. And Life of Fred is a very story-based math. And I've never used it to teach my kids, but my kids do enjoy like reading the stories. So that might also be something to look at. There, you can find them on Amazon, Life of Fred. So that's another potential to look at. And they have algebra, geometry, and other topics. It's comic book style. Okay, my boys are going to want to learn about that comic book style. Amanda said we push math too. We do it because with my oldest, didn't like it, but he grew. As he grew, we kept going, and now he's in pre-calculus. That's true. I know. I remember you telling me that. I was so impressed. I think sometimes it's important to give him the chance to hook in. Yes, I think that's great. And you do a good job of doing that in a positive way, Amanda. General question. Perfect. A music haven. I tried to ask my boy, who's 3, to do some learning activities with me, but he refused. Do you have any tips? Yes. Okay. So as a 3-year-old, this is a great question, right? We've got quite a spectrum of ages here live with me. We've got up to 15. We've got 13-year-olds down to 3-year-old. And when our kids are so young, around 3, they're basically learning all the time. And I would encourage you to let him lead on the learning. And what I mean by that is asking him, what do you want to play with? And I don't know what your little boy is like, but mine would always be like Legos or Magnet tiles, like Legos or Magnet tiles. And that is truly STEM learning. Like that's STEM or STEAM, depending on, which acronym you prefer. That is science. Now, maybe your little guy is more outdoorsy and he might be like, well, let's go outside and play, Mom. And you guys can go outside and you could observe. Like you can play, probably want to do like tag or something. I mean, I'm a boy mom of 4. I want to do tag, something rough, catch me kind of thing. And then you could go after you play, right? Let them get out some energy. You guys go on a walk where there's a little bit of nature. And so maybe you guys could identify some trees. Maybe you guys could just talk about the different landforms around you. I live in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon. And I mean, I look out my window and we've got evergreens and we've got oak trees and we've got birch and we've got we've got so much. So like for us, this is easy. For somebody who lives in the desert or a very dry area, this is a little bit more difficult. And so I would encourage you to ask him what he would want to do. Like, what toys do you want to play with? What or do you want to go outside and play? And then witness and observe him, see what he's drawn to. With, if I compare my firstborn and my secondborn, my firstborn boy, he was like 2 and wanting to learn how to read. So he started learning to read around 3. He was reading at 4. And like, so he was just like way ahead, and that's what he wanted. And it was really stressful, but that's what he wanted. So we followed his lead. And then, son 2 came along, and whereas my firstborn was reading at 4, my secondborn could not tell all of the letters in the alphabet at 5 years old. I was like, what have I done to you, child? Did I break you? You don't, like, you can't even tell what your letters are, when my oldest was starting like chapter books. Like, what did I do wrong? Well, he's a different kid, and it's okay. And so, long story short on that, about a year later, when he turned 6, his reading really exploded, and he just took off and read, and started reading things that like Harry Potter sized novels around like 7 and 8. And so, because he wanted to, that's just what he wanted. So he was just a later reader, and that's okay. And then we talk about the thirdborn. I didn't even teach that kid how to read. He just learned through osmosis. So there's that too. So you've got a whole bunch of different kinds of kids in there. So I'd love to hear what's resonating about what I'm saying with you, Music Haven, about your 3-year-old little boy. Maybe you're noticing he likes books. Maybe you're noticing he likes outside. Maybe you're noticing he likes to build. Those are the things at this young age, you want to really lean into and help discover the way their brains are working, and like guide them in that. Amanda shared, at that age, we never made it seem like learning. It was the TV shows and coloring for fine motor skills, so don't stress it. We do so much of that stuff before we started learning for real. Yeah, it is real learning. It's just what it looks like at a different stage. All right. These are all great questions. Oh, hi, Amy. It's so good to hear from you. Yes. What are your thoughts? Okay, so you're in the Bay Area, I'm assuming so. So many beautiful things. Thinking about, like, do great white sharks interest him? I have this great book. I feel like I want to go grab it off my wall. I'm going to go grab it off my wall because it has to do with the Bay Area, which would be very relevant. So give me just a sec, guys. I'm going to disappear for like 20 seconds. I'm going to grab this book. I love you too. All right. So this book, I don't know if I've told you about it, Amy, called Neighborhood Sharks. It's by, I don't know if it's showing up backwards for you guys. Catherine Roy is the author and artist, and it's about great white sharks in the bay. And it's like gory and beautiful. It's so good for boys. And I got to meet the artist. I think she signed it for us. I feel like she signed it somewhere. We bought it from her at a shark exhibit here in Oregon. But like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then you guys, you got the book from the library. Oh, good. Yes. Okay, so you got it. So if you can find something like this that's local to your area, and then you can go outside with your little one and like have it be applicable to their real life. Like, another example. So I told you with my kindergartner, we were watching a video about cyclones, right? Well, he's interested in cyclones because we have a compassion child, and our compassion child's house was hit by a cyclone. So we were praying for him, and he paused. He's like, "Mommy, what's a cyclone?" And I was like, "Oh, of course you wouldn't know what that is." And so yesterday we watched videos about cyclones. I wouldn't just put that on him normally, but we had a relevant life experience that he could attach it to and like understand the information. And so that's why, especially at the young ages, you can find something, that's about your local area or by a local author that is for kids. You can go to your local library and ask for that kind of resource. That makes learning meaningful. And our little ones they attach, like they understand it more deeply than like, let's read about sharks, honey. Like sharks are cool, don't get me wrong. But then you could go out to the bay and like talk about it. It's way cooler. Okay. Does that mean I need to separate my learning with my 3 and 5-year-old? What I would say is with whatever you're doing with your 5-year-old, you can invite your 3-year-old into it. And if he doesn't want to, cool, bud, here's some blocks you can build with. Like that's it. Because sometimes kids aren't going to be interested and sometimes they are. And your 3-year-old will let you know when he's ready for more advanced work by wanting to join. Another client, her name's Marla. She has I think he's 6 and a 3-year-old. A 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, 2 boys. And while she does her work with her 5-year-old, he might be 6, 6-year-old, her 3-year-old's been coming up and being like, Mommy, I want to do school. Oh, you want to do school? Okay, bud. And so now she's starting preschool with him because he's like wanting to be a part of it. But if he's off playing, doing his own thing, like, great, let him do it. Let him do it. All right. Let's see. Let me know if you have more questions on top of that, Amy. All right, Amanda, you were homeschooled, right? Yes. I'm curious from that perspective, what sort of things do you really lean into or shy away from? Okay, this is a great question. So yes, I was homeschooled. I was homeschooled until high school. And so my parents, probably say up to 10 or 11, did a very unschooling version. What do I call it? A structured unschooling version, right? They taught me to read. They taught me some basic math. And then the rest of my life was chores on our ranch or activities. I used to do competitive vaulting, which is gymnastics on horseback. And so I was either, working with a horse, I was on a horse, I was stretching or practicing my moves, or we were going to my vaulting class. I guess we call it a class. And so my life had very minimal book learning and a lot of life learning. And so horses, responsibility, chores, we bred dogs. So, we always had puppies. There's usually, a horse pregnant, bred horses. And then, of course, this going to this sport activity that was highly invested in. And so that was really my life as a kid. And this sport was an individual sport and a team sport. So I got to work on a team as well. And that was really great experience for myself as a child, which is also what I like to say. I'm not awkward. I guess I'm quirky. I wouldn't say I'm awkward, but that was my life. And I had lots of space to go outside, enjoy myself, play with the dogs, play with the horses. Like we, for a long time, lived on property that had a stream running through it and like massive blackberry bushes. So I would like go out there and hack away at the blackberry bushes or pick blackberries or sit down at the stream or play with a horse again. So I had a lot of free time. I had a lot of time to learn how I learn, enjoy myself. And when I wanted to learn about something deeper, I had the space and time to do so. And so again, real learning isn't necessarily done in a book, which I think most of us would agree with. And so when our kids are little, drawing, that's real learning. Watching a bug crawl across the concrete, that's real learning. They're absorbing real life, like sometimes for the very first time. So that was my unschooling experience until about 10, 11. And then from 11 to 14, it was a really dark season. My parents, they moved us into a different state. and I lost all my friends, and we lived out in the country, and then they got a divorce. And so that's what I would call radical unschooling, where you do nothing with your child and you kind of just let them be there and flop. And that I don't think was an intentional choice on their part. They were both like in the middle of life crises themselves. And so I fell through the cracks. My brother and we fell through the cracks, unfortunately. And so that was a really dark season for me. And I kept myself busy. That was at the very beginning of the internet, and I spent hours building websites for fun. And so I actually learned much of what I do today, like the back end of everything, in those harder years. And so I would not recommend radical unschooling to anybody. I think it's a form of abandonment and is not responsible as a parent. And so eventually my parents came to, and they're like, well, what are we going to do with Amanda? And they put me in public school. And I honestly, genuinely had a good public school experience. I had friends. I was involved in clubs. Like, I also worked. I met my husband there. Like, I had like several amazing teachers. I grew a lot as a writer. And so to answer your question, Amanda, thinking back over what I got as a child and what got missed, the things I lean into are self-directed learning. If my kids want to learn about something deeply, I will do my best to help them learn about that thing deeply. If it costs money, we'll try to make that happen. And I also lean heavily into social experiences. So we do jujitsu, right? That's something we're committed to. My kids have friends there, and they're also learning to develop their minds and their bodies. And so I lean heavily into social experiences. I lean heavily into self-directed learning. The things that got missed for me, I have always had a bad experience with math. Like, I remember my dad trying to teach me, and I'm like bawling. I'm just crying. So I try to make math a positive experience, and I think, with the exception of one child, I have. And then, so I think one of the reasons I push heavy into math is because it was such a struggle for me as a kid, and I don't want it to be a struggle for them, because it held me back, not being able to do certain things. So I push heavy into math. And then I also push heavy into writing, because when I got to high school, I couldn't write a paragraph. And I remember my freshman English teacher, he was such a kind gentleman. His name was Mr. Johnson. And we had to submit our first essay. It was like a 3-paragraph. No, it must have been a 5-paragraph essay. It's really hard for me to write. And it was the cheesiest thing ever. It was so terrible. And I remember sitting at my desk. He brings my paper over to me, and he says, "So, Amanda, what do you think of your paper?" I said, "I think it's really cheesy." He went, "Yeah, I kind of felt like that too." And I said, I don't really know how to write. What should I do differently?" And so he was one of the great teachers that helped me develop my writing. Also, my junior year teacher, man, he helped me learn how to write. He was amazing and willing to regrade essays after they had been graded so that you could improve your writing. He was amazing. Mr. Schwartz, if you're listening, you were an amazing teacher. So again, I lean heavy into writing, because not just because I couldn't write as a kid and it was a hard one skill, is I couldn't organize things up here to communicate them in a way another person would understand. That was not well modeled for me as a child, nor was it critical thinking and logical thinking modeled for me or taught to me. And so writing for me is one of those things we lean very heavily into, because it's hard to get those brain neurons to connect and grow. And it sometimes feels like I'm pulling teeth, and it's worth it, because that was the biggest thing that set me back as a kid, as an adult, not being able to think through things in a way to communicate them to someone else in a way they could understand. So that's the long answer to that question. So I want to swing back to what Amanda said. I have a hard time coming away from actual school things. I think my fear is that I'm abandoning them. They have so much self-directed time, but I'm heavy on the math and ELA. Thanks for sharing that. Lets me know I'm doing okay. I also lean into the social side of things. So important for them to be able to teach themselves or communicate. So writing is a part of that for us. Yeah, absolutely. So many good questions, you guys. So many good questions. Okay, I'm going to take a sip of water. If you have questions, pop them in the chat. This is mostly about restarting homeschool for the homeschool year. Covered a lot so far, and I would absolutely love to answer anybody who's live with me, but I have pre-submitted questions that I'm also going to get back to. So let me look really quick at one of them. Okay. So this one comes from Kristen, and she said, I need to prepare myself to get up early enough to start school on time. She said she's an early bird, but she hates getting up while it's still dark. Do you hate getting up while things are, it's still dark? Like I remember this season, like when we're so close to the equinox. I think that's what it is. The solstice. That's what it is. The winter solstice, and there is not daylight. Okay, so this is something I've just started this year, and I've not done it before, but so far I'm enjoying it, and it has to do with getting up while it's still dark, and that is the night before you prepare the house to be exciting for you to wake up in. And what I mean by that, some tangible examples. One, I have my coffee already, like it's ready for me. All I have to do is add hot water and like push down on my French press. I love my coffee. Maybe for you, it's like having your tea bag already in your cup and like your tea kettle filled, right? So that's ready, waiting there for me. That's one of the things I do to like get myself up while it's still dark. And I'm a morning person too. If you're not a morning person, like don't force it. I'm just going to say that, don't force it. I am a morning person. And so I get my coffee ready the night before. I also get my diffuser ready the night before, and I pick a scent that I'm enjoying currently. So I get it all ready. That's all ready. I also make sure my living room is picked up before my kids go to bed, so that when I walk into my living room, I don't feel like there's stuff I have to do. All right, so living room's clean. The kids clean it because it's only dirty because of the children. I'll help them. But then I've added another little touch, and it's candles. I've added some candles, and I just light my candles in the morning. I start my diffuser. They're unscented candles. I prefer that. My diffuser, I have my coffee, and I sit down on the couch with my hot cup of coffee, a cozy blanket, and I look out the window all by myself. And it's wonderful. Sit there and I drink it. I pray. I journal. I don't read. Or I just like think, okay, what are we doing today? This is what we're doing. Okay, I'm going to take some deep breaths, right? I create a space I'm excited to get up in. And I want to get up early enough that I have time and space to enjoy it separate from my kids. My kiddos are old enough now that they know not to come out of their bedroom before 6:45, unless there's an issue, obviously. But then when they come out at 6:45, I'm all cozy on the couch. Then we get to start by snuggling. We snuggle. So not only do I get my time to myself, I get to also then snuggle my kiddos, which is one of the wonderful benefits of being a homeschool parent, right? We're not rushing them off to school, filling their little lunch boxes. We're sitting and enjoying them. And I snuggled with my second born. He's 11. I was like, Hey, buddy, like, I'm so happy I still get to do this with you, you know? I snuggled with my oldest. He's 13 last night. He read to me, and then I snuggled him. Like, it's amazing. So I would encourage you to wake up to a room you're excited to go to alone. That might help. So I wanted to just encourage you, and you don't have to do all those things. Obviously, I've been making my coffee for years, but I've just added candles and a cozy blanket recently. So that's something that you can do, picking something that makes you excited to get up and go be in, so that you get yourself out of bed while it's still dark. And then the other thing is, I want to encourage you, sometimes it's okay to sleep in. It's okay to have a later start. I coach a lot of different moms, but usually moms come to me when they're at the like lowest of lows, in like the bottom of their season. And I can't name a single one who wasn't sleep deprived. Okay. When we get into private coaching, not a single one of them was sleep you sleeping too much. Everybody was sleep deprived. And so it's okay for you to start the day later and to do a little less school so your body can fix itself a little bit. So you could take the opposite side and just sleep in more while it's dark and allow yourself to do that. So flip the coin, don't get up early, stay in bed. All right. Let's see. I want to get back to some of the questions we have here. Okay. Oh, you had to step out for a bit, Hannah. Sorry if this was asked, but I wanted to ask you, what is your most challenging part of being a homeschool mom? What makes me lose my cool? Great question, Hannah. My most challenging part is my guac child. It's my guac child. And I have, in the last, since he was born, 8 or 9 years, done so much personal growth. So much. I'm an entirely different person than I was 8 years ago. And that's great. He helped me become a better mom. He's my neurodivergent kiddo. But it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe 4 months ago, because self-growth, like personal growth, is very layered, right? You'll have aha moments, and then you'll live in the aha moment, and then there'll be like another piece that layer like peels off, and you're like, oh my gosh. So I wouldn't say it was like until 4 months ago that I realized that when he gets hot and bothered, I get roped right in to the hot and bothered, and I react just as much as him. And again, I've done a lot of self-growth, and I only had that realization recently. And so, while he's kind of like that double-edged sword, right? Swords are great, right? You need a sword for war. But it's like, it hurts and it's good because some of these things need to be cut away. And having that realization that, oh my gosh, I get roped right in to his emotional ups and downs. I get to learn how to separate myself. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the psychology term is enmeshment. And if you feel like you're a highly empathetic, sensitive person, you likely struggle with enmeshment. And that means making other people's emotions your emotions, and you absorbing what they're feeling in your body. And there is a line between enmeshment and co-regulation. And so enmeshment, that's what I've been doing. I've been absorbing his emotions and mirroring them back to him, rather than co-regulating with him, where he's having a hard time and I stay calm and he absorbs the calm energy. And so for me, the hardest thing isn't the teaching. I want to encourage moms. I don't think you need to be a teacher to be a homeschool mom, but I do have a teaching spirit about me, if you will. It's just kind of been ingrained. It's just in me. I just like to teach people things. So that comes more naturally to me. The thing that I struggle with the most is the emotional piece. that is really just motherhood and being around the same people all the time. And so that's the hardest thing for me. And the thing that makes me lose my cool across the board in all areas of my life is not feeling listened to. And this has come after so many years of reflection. So my dad is completely deaf. And he's a lip reader. We do a little bit of sign language, but he's a lip reader. And in order for me to have a conversation with him, he gives me his full focus and I have to give him my full focus. And he's like my emotional person as a kid. And so when I speak, I have this expectation that you are fully engaged with everything I'm saying. And if you are able to reflect back to me what I'm saying, or you misunderstand me, it's very hard for me to stay calm because I work very hard in order to communicate my thoughts. A lot of people are talker-outers, and that's great. I am not a talker-outer. And in order for me to be able to communicate something thoroughly to you, I've put a lot of time and effort into it. And when that time and effort isn't acknowledged with your full attention, I get pissed off. And, guess what? When you have children, they don't listen. And so that's something, not just as a mom, but as a friend, as a wife, I've had to keep in check. I'm like, well, okay, hold up. That is a good friend thing to do. Give somebody your full attention when they're talking to you. That's a wonderful thing to do for somebody. However, that's not always attainable, or, sometimes somebody else might be distracted by their own cares, or you're working with children. So I've had to work through that. But I would definitely say that's been the hardest thing for me, Hannah, is that separating myself from my kiddo who is very reactive and being okay with not being listened to, which is still an ongoing challenge for me. All right. Snow Ebony shared, I get up and sit in my sunroom in the morning with tea and watch the sunrise and allow myself, oh my gosh, this sounds so dreamy, to be before doing. Yes. Oh my gosh. Sunroom, sign me up. Where do you live? I'll come hang out with you. We could just be quiet together. Let's see here. Amanda shared, we start slow and then pull tarot cards together every morning. I do yoga before the kids get up. Yeah, moving your body. It can be really, really important. Read the Bible. Will there be a replay of this? Yes, there will. It should be available right after we end it. It might take a couple hours. I can't remember. But it should be ready within a couple hours. Hannah, the reaction, that's the struggle. I often regret reacting so dramatically to certain things. I totally get you. And the teaching is never hard. It's always the emotional stuff that you never expect to deal with prior to homeschooling. 100%. You're so welcome. Amanda, it's so hard to spend all day, every day with anyone, let alone a mini human that is living life. It's so hard for me to remember that. Yeah, I get mad sometimes with not being listened to. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, we all knew homeschooling was going to be hard. You just know it's going to be hard, but we don't expect it to be this journey of self-discovery. And again, it gets back to, my hard child is the child who has made me a better mom, a better friend, a better coach, because without him, I wouldn't have done all this reflecting. Without him, I wouldn't have done all this growing. These broken things, I don't even want to say broken things, these things that are misaligned with what I want wouldn't have ever really come up if it weren't for him, right? It just wouldn't be a problem because it would be so infrequent. It would be oh, that's weird. Oh, no big deal, and move on. But I've had to examine these things and say, oh, this is not in alignment with what I want. Because I could be a super reactive mom and just be well, you're a turd, so you deserve this, right? I could. But that's not in alignment with the mom I want to show up as. And so even though it's been hard, he is the boy that's made me a better person and a better mom. So love it. Love it. So true. Okay, these are great questions, ladies. Been talking for an hour. We got another hour left. So go ahead and please put any more questions you have in the chat. I'm going to look at the next question I got from the mamas on my inner circle list, which again, inner circle is just my, again, I don't want to say just my email list, because you guys, if you're not on my email list, like genuinely, I pour a lot of intention every week into what I share with you through email. And so it's not, always amazing, but I really try to think about where a homeschool mom is at in each season and speak life to her. So if you want to be a part of it, it's free. You can join there. All right. Lovely Rosemary. Any suggestions for children that seem to avoid people? Okay. That, or at least people their own age. Oh, hold on. You're going to have to expand on that one for me. So they avoid kids their own age? They avoid peers? Is that what you mean? Or they avoid like adults? Those are different things. Some kids just aren't people kids. My oldest isn't. Yeah. I've learned to take it where we can get it. Yeah. I want to know a little bit more deeply, Rosemary. Let me know if it's peers, adults, maybe it's both. Let me know. I'm going to look at our next question. Let's see. Where did it go? Oh, okay. So I want to take this question from Brooke. Her name's Brooke. Golly. Brooke. And she said she feels behind before she's even begun, and she doesn't know where to start again. So where to start again, like, keep it simple, right? Earlier I was sharing when we want to get into that mindset of like, okay, I'm going to be serious. I got to lead my kids. They need to know I'm serious. Start simply. Start with one subject and do that one subject well for a week. It could be a couple days and then you add in another subject. But try it for 1 week. Do it well, show up well, end well, and then keep going. And if you need one to start with, do language arts first. I'm going to suggest either language arts or math. Like, go ahead and start there. And language arts is so flexible. It could, you guys could be, if you look at fun schooling, the fun schooling curriculum from Sarah Janice Brown, who's amazing. Her curriculum is around, a certain topic and usually something that the child's interested in, and it typically incorporates some kind of language arts in it. So if you need like a really good solid starting point, your language arts curriculum, just start there. Do that well for a week and then begin to add things in. And then thinking about the feeling behind before you even begin again. Oh gosh, that's something we could get into. I want to make sure I answer Rosemary's question first. Okay. They seem to ignore their peers, but they were hanging out with much younger children on Sunday. Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay. Much younger peers. Okay. So that's really interesting. There could be so many things about that. I wouldn't say first, I wouldn't think that's a red flag. If they were avoiding all human contact, right? Okay, that's a red flag. But so when I was older, like teens, and I was dating my husband, and I would go over to my husband's family's house, who are all wonderful people. They never made me feel judged or anything. They were wonderful people, but I didn't know how to interact with them. My husband comes from a very analytical family, and like they're all thinkers, they're all talker outers. they're not big feelers. And I'm the big feeler, and I'm like, I don't know how to talk to people. And so I wouldn't like sit at the table and have a conversation, or like that. Just I didn't really know how to do that. It's also not really like my thing. And so what I would do, because I felt uncomfortable with people who were my age or maybe a little older, I would actually go to the grandkids and the littler kids, because all they want to do is play, and they're not going to judge me or ask me questions or make me feel uncomfortable. And so I would go play with the grandkids, because they were, between 5 and 10, and great and amazing, and like thought I was a cool auntie. So that, like, I'm just thinking about that on my own experience, but I wouldn't think of it as a red flag. I think something to keep watching, maybe have a conversation with them about, see if they understand why they're doing it. Do they know they're doing it? Maybe there's a certain peer that makes them feel a certain way that they want to avoid. So I would just be something I would explore a little more. But when I was, 16, 17, that's what I would do and why I would do it. So it's not an idea for you, Rosemary. Okay, bye, Amy. It was so good to hear from you. I was so glad to see you. Okay, Amanda, what about divorce? How do you think we can navigate homeschooling, keeping things normal through a split or a move? Something big, we're struggling, and our friends are struggling with other things. Okay, so that is a really challenging question. One thing, unless we're talking about like safety issues, then I'm a child of divorce, and I don't think it brought much good. However, both my parents weren't really willing to work on themselves, or at least one party wasn't. And so we were miserable together, we were miserable apart. But I think if both parties can be willing to work on themselves and everybody's safe, it can grow into something that's a beautiful outcome. So I discourage divorce, simply because families being apart, it's so hard. There are so many things that are so much more complicated. And I have a very close friend who's, potentially facing this. And again, I'm a child of divorce, so it's not far removed from me. But again, first be like, okay, go to therapy. See if you guys can work on each other. Like, not work on yourselves individually. That's what I'm saying. And then see what you can do together, with a facilitator. That would be number one. Number two is, it's so hard. I would say trying to keep things as you go through a hard time, because hard things happen, whether we're talking about divorce, whether we're talking about the death of a parent, whether we're talking about, just different things. I would say for the kids, try to keep things the same as possible, right? So for example, when my parents got divorced or separated first, my dad left to a different state so he could go find a job. Like, he couldn't find a job where we were living, and so he legitimately needed to leave. Like, I get it. But then my mom couldn't stay home, which is what she had been doing. And there were massive gaps. Like, I was old enough to take care of myself. Not like I was 5 or anything. I was, 11, 12. But so many things changed so rapidly. So whoever is the primary caretaker, like whether that's dad homeschooling or mom homeschooling, keeping things the same, is probably one of the best things for the kids, so that their life is not too rocked. That would be number one, I would say. And then during any kind of challenging season, I would be individually checking in with each of my kids. And that might be like every single day I'm moving on to a different kid. Like, okay, so-and-so, there's this challenging thing going on. How are you doing with it? And I would use language that's obviously, age appropriate. Thinking what I would say to my 13-year-old is not what I'd say to my 6-year-old. And so trying to say those things in a way that will help draw out maybe some emotions they've been hiding, maybe even from themselves, not like intentionally hiding from you. But I would be checking in with my kids, especially if I saw that they had like a really hard moment. I would, comfort them, help them try to get regulated again, and then try to have a conversation about it while it's fresh, but they're also regulated. That would be the other thing, is to make sure the kids don't fall through the cracks while you're having a hard time. Those are the hard things. There's, with hard things like that, there's so much uniqueness that happens in every situation. So those are the general things I would say. So Amanda shared, so like keeping homeschool constant, this move isn't really a bad thing. It's been hard. That is the constant that Andy and I were trying to do during our move. They don't want to leave Cheyenne. Yeah. Oh gosh. Oh yeah. Yes, keeping homeschool constant. Keep something that is regular in their life so that they feel like there's like some kind of safety, something they can fall back on, even if they resist homeschool. Like that's fine. Yeah, I would probably expect that during a big move. Keep something the same, because when my family and I moved, I had like a full schedule and a little bit of school and then lots of social activities, lots of outside time. And we moved like in the fall, and I had no opportunity to make friends. My parents were not homeschooling. And then we were in a place that had winters like we'd never experienced. So I couldn't even go outside. It was too cold. And so I lost all the things. I lost all my rhythms. And that was like the beginning of a downward spiral. And so keeping homeschooling up, even if they're pushing back, is probably what's best for them. Maybe, not doing a full schedule, doing a more limited schedule, but keeping that rhythm is going to be very, very important. Yeah, gosh, it's so hard. And you just know, it's like one of those things that sometimes families have to move. Families have to move. And it's a shared experience within the culture. And sometimes people have to move across country, and it's a hard, challenging time, and they'll be able to grow through it. Ultimately, you got to do what's right for the whole family. And sometimes that means removing them from their friends, which is so hard. I know it's so hard. Sorry, you guys are kind of stuck there. Well, that's good too. Yeah. Find a new home base, like the library. I think that's a great idea. Okay. Good questions, guys. Good questions. You are still here live. Please pop them in the chat. Again, it doesn't just have to be about restarting homeschool. I mean, I like to say homeschooling is like a plate of spaghetti. Everything touches everything, right? And like it's all got the same sauce on it. And so we can't just talk about homeschool like it's in its vacuum bubble over here. Like it all touches everything. Yeah, it's especially hard for a teenager. That like 11, I don't know when it would end, 11 to like 25-ish, that time period, friends are just so important. Friends are just so important to kids that age. And it's totally natural for them to feel that way. But it has to be the right choice for the whole family. So it's a tough one. Okay. So I want to circle back to anybody who's feeling behind before you even begin. So sometimes our response to this is, well, when we restart, we're going to do all the things and play some catch up, which again, like starting full force is typically a bad choice for most families. So it's more important to choose a starting line, right? We just want to start simply rather than having a finishing line. Don't have that in mind, because that can most of the time set us up for failure rather than success. So again, have a simple start. And again, simple start looks like you could start with the core 2. You could start with the core 4. Core 4, math, language arts, science, and social studies. So core 2, math and language arts. Start there. Start with one of them. And then keep adding in and layering more as you get through the month of January. January to May is the biggest chunk of homeschool that you will have every single year. There is plenty of time to establish a rhythm. There is plenty of time for you to make headway on whatever curriculum you're using, okay? So think about why you feel behind before you begin, and instead of focusing on the finish line, right? Focus just, okay, we're just going to start here. And as we get going, I can start thinking about the finish line. What's important is to start the routine, not to jam everything in so you can get to the finish line, because that's typically not going to work out for you. Start the routine, and then you can start looking at the, the finish line as you get there. Okay. Okay. I'm going to look at the next question. Let's see here. Okay, this is another good one. I've got a couple more. So Osana talked about getting back into a routine, which she wanted to do while still recovering from holiday busyness, and then being in competition with new toys and like pulling her kiddo away from the new toys and back into school. And so what I would say, if you're wanting to get back into a routine, gosh, I'm getting a little warm. If you're wanting to get back into a routine, that's totally natural. Whether we like it or not, as women, we live in a rhythm. It's called our cycle. And we are just rhythmic by nature. And so wanting to be in a rhythm is very natural, especially if you've just been in a chaotic time or, just had the busyness of the holidays. So let's say you came off a really busy holiday season. Maybe you guys did a lot of travel. Maybe you guys had a lot of sickness, whatever it was that was a lot, allow yourself a slow start. And this might mean sleeping in a little bit more so your body can catch up and feel good. So when you wake up, you're refreshed and you're not feeling like your cup is already empty because you're exhausted and you don't feel like you have follow through, right? So I want to encourage you that if you're still recovering from the holidays, just start slow. Let yourself sleep in and, slowly gain momentum. I really want you to picture like an old steam engine, right? You've ever seen an old steam engine start up? It literally spins its wheels like it spins in place, but it can also go 60 miles an hour. But it's not a Ferrari. You're not a Ferrari, you're a steam engine. Just be okay with that. So think about your little steam engine starting to gain momentum. And so if you're still tired from the holidays, let yourself get replenished, get rest, feed yourself well. That's important. Feed yourself well, get yourself some sleep. And then think about the slow start of a steam engine. You guys can get to 60 miles an hour, but you're not going to get there in the blink of an eye. You're not a Ferrari, you're a steam engine. So just know that momentum is going to be built slowly, and motivation usually comes once you have some momentum, which is why we go back to that mindset of how do you get yourself in the right frame of mind for homeschooling, which is your why for homeschooling and your vision word, and pair them together. It's like that steam engine that helps you go a little bit faster. See you Thursday, Rosemary. So thank you for joining us. So you're a steam engine. So keep that picture in your mind, and that there's going to be some spinning of your wheels, and just allow time for that to happen, because that's a natural part of the process. And then thinking about the competing with new toys, right? So my kiddos, I think they all got Legos. No, my second born he didn't get Legos. He got this like little kit. I don't even know what they're called. They're like miniature houses. Or like he's done like a miniature flower shop. My other kiddo's done like a miniature coffee shop. This one's another, like, it's a miniature greenhouse, and they're like this big, but there's like these tiny little details, and he loves doing it and he's still working on it. But I'm not taking time away from that. I'm just saying, hey, we've got to do a little school before you start on that. So if you've got Legos or a project your kid's really been enjoying, you've got to let them know, like, hey, you can get back to that as soon as we complete language arts, right? Or, before school, while you're starting your morning slow, hey, why don't you go play with your Legos while I make breakfast and, get myself ready for the day. And I'll let you know, I'll give you a 10-minute timer to wrap things up when we're getting close to homeschool time, okay? And then when we're done, you can go back to it. And so you're framing it as, it's not like you're never going to play with this again or you're all done for the day. You're framing it in a way that, hey, once we complete this, you can go back to this project. And I also want to encourage you, if they're playing with Legos, that's science. Like, it literally is science. So you don't even have to do science that week. Like my kids, they have the Lego STEM, Lego Spike kits. That's what they are, Lego Spike kits. And so they're doing coding. They're also just playing, but they're also learning coding and they're building. And like, that's our science right now. That's okay. Like, that's fine. You can have an hour to go do your coding and enjoy yourself and build something. But then we have to put it away, right? You can also give them a time frame to do that thing. Instead of like, once we're done with school, you can do this for however long you want. You could say, hey, you can do this for an hour once we're done with math. So making sure you're framing things in a way that your kiddos know they can come back to it, or there's a designated amount of time that they'll have for it, that helps them have a little bit less resistance because they know they can go back and do their thing. And I always want to encourage you, if they're currently working on a project and you want to pull them from it, to give them warnings. And, sometimes it's not going to work. Sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, the time, I got to go, right? But in general, we can help our kids transition to school by saying, hey, in 10 minutes, we're going to start school. Okay, I'm going to set a 5-minute timer. And when that timer goes off, you're going to come to the table. Letting them know that, hey, it's time to begin wrapping up will help a lot. And once you get into the habit of that and let your kids know you're serious about that, they're really good about coming to the table, especially like, one of the things, we've been on a screen fast, so we haven't had to do it recently, but if your kids have a hard time coming off screen time, giving them a designated amount of time and then a 5-minute wrapper. And then if they have attitude about turning off their screen, then the next time it's screen time, they don't get it. Like, that's not okay. I gave you a warning. I let you wrap up. You don't get to respond with a bad attitude. Like, that's not okay. If you're responding by a bad attitude, I can tell you're dysregulated. You got dysregulated by that, whatever you were playing. So you either hand it calmly back to me when the timer's up, or you'll lose it for next time. And it's not a punishment. It's because I care about the way your brain is wired, and I don't want it wired for instant gratification all the time, because that'll put you at a disadvantage as an adult and rob a lot of joy from your life, right? Really putting these things in context and framing them for our kids is so important. And the reason I'll share our screen fast. So about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I'll say now, I got my kindergartner an iPad, and he didn't have like anything to do certain games on, and like he kept using my oldest iPad for like a few of the school things we would do, and like he would be trying to do math, or he'd be trying to do drawing, and he'd be trying to do coding, and be like, we need the iPad. So I got my kindergartner his own. Wow. Very quickly, my kindergartner was asking for screen time all the time. And even like going to say, Okay, so here's one of those things that when your kids say something way off. So my 6-year-old, he goes, "Mommy, what does incest mean?" And I was like, "Okay, calm down, calm down, calm down. Okay, hold on. Okay, well, what do you think incest means, baby?" "Well, it means that something's always on your mind." And I was like, "Oh, you're saying obsessed. Obsessed. Something's always on your mind. You're obsessed with it. Is that what you mean?" "Yeah, that's what I mean." Whoa! Didn't have to have that scary conversation with a 6-year-old. Um, definitely one of those scares. It's like, calm down, don't freak out. Where did you hear that word? Okay, obsessed is what he was trying to say. And he's like, "Mommy, I'm obsessed about my little universe. I want to build. I want to, do all the things in my little universe." And I was like, So again, back to the screen. He's obsessed about my little universe, and then always asking me about screen time. Always asking me about screen time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this kid is driving me crazy. It's not a screen time day. Okay, is it screen time day tomorrow? Can I play my little universe? I'm like, okay, red flag. So this was probably 3 weeks after he had officially gotten his own little iPad. And I talked to my husband and I say, look, Emmett's really focused on screen time and game time. So much so that he's like, I'm bored. I don't know what to build. I don't know how, I don't know, Mommy. It's not a screen time day. Get your toys and build something. I don't know. I can't think of anything. You're 6. You have a creative mind. No, there will be no screen time for a while. So talk to my husband. Emmett's saying this. He's like, yeah, let's just cut screens. And it was a really good time because we actually took school off. And so some of my kids' school is done on a screen. And so we were able to really put them away for a while. Now we are reintroducing screen time very soon. Once a week. And it'll be okay. We'll navigate it. We'll take it away if we need to. But I told everybody, my point in sharing this is I told all my kids, I had them sit down and I said, look, I'm not taking screens because this is a punishment. You guys, you're not doing anything wrong, but here's what I'm seeing. And I explained Emmett's behavior. I explained what happens when our brain becomes wired for instant gratification because we can no longer experience delayed gratification and what that'll do, how that'll control us as our brain searches for dopamine. And I began to explain these things to my kids. And I was like, I don't want to set you up for failure because it's convenient for me. I want us to hit a screen break. We're going to do a screen fast. We will watch movies together. We will have screens that are a shared experience. And that's it for a while. So anyways, we didn't get any pushback. They were like, oh, well, yeah, we don't want Emmett to do that. And it's good for us to have a break from screens. And they've been creating and we've been watching Star Wars and we've been quoting songs. There's Star Wars, there's obviously Star Wars. We've been quoting that. And then there's funny songs by Bad Lip Reading here on YouTube. From the Star Wars movies. And so we've been playing those silly songs like My Stick. Yoda sings about his stick is better than bacon. And then seagulls. And Yoda sings about seagulls, So we've been doing that and we've been having a lot of fun and a lot of shared experiences. But my kids didn't give me pushback because I explained the why behind it. And my, 6-year-old doesn't quite get it, but he sees that his brothers are on board. And he understands that I care about him and the way his brain develops. And he could see, because he verbalized to me, Mommy, I don't know what to make. Mommy, I'm bored. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to create. So he could see it to some extent. So if your kids are giving you pushback about something, logically explaining it to them while they're in a regulated state can land pretty well, especially when they know you're serious. So again, we didn't do screens for a good 2 weeks. It felt wonderful. It was great. I really don't want to reintroduce screens, but we're going to get back to school anyways, so we're going to figure it out. All right. Snow Evney, I'm not sure how to say your name, also explained to my son about some apps games his friends recommended and wants to play them all the time. He fully understood the difference that the game was having on his behavior and also didn't get pushed back. Yeah, I love that. I love that. When our kids understand those things, and it's not like we're these awful people taking these things from them that bring them joy, when they understand them in context, you know, they get it. For example, I mean, we don't have to use screens. We could use food. Now we have allergies, we eat differently, which is another big benefit of homeschooling. Can pretty much control what they're eating rather than like, who knows if they got cheese at the cafeteria and they didn't listen. So my kids understand the consequences of eating poorly. And like if you go eat like bad oils in their system and how it affects their tummies, or too much dairy for them, how it affects their tummies and gives them rings under their eyes and makes them feel yucky and blah and like congested, right? They begin to see these patterns and the consequences of what they're putting in their body. And my kids know that because I remember this one time we were really having tummy issues and we had to have a poop chart. We maybe TMI for you, but they were cartoony, but pictures of different kind of poo. And when it comes out of you, if it looks like this, that's what this kind of poo is. And when it looks like this, that's good. That means your tummy's digesting all the things. And we were like trying to get our tummies regulated so our tummies were like in a good shape so we could stay healthy. And we were all shooting for the snake poop. Everybody wanted to have a snake poop because it looks like a snake. And so we very actively like have experienced what we put in our bodies affects us directly. And so that's conversations you're already having with your children from a young age, then that's easily translated into things that they can't see. Whereas the effects of screen, which he could see, it was already affecting his behavior, which is something that they can see. But who could really tell that you don't experience delayed gratification? You are only experiencing instant gratification. Your brain's been rewired. That's not something you can like really see like you can when the poop comes out. So these conversations of our consequences of our choices have started young, and having those conversations make it very easy for us to have conversations about these bigger things like screens and how they affect our brains. And so that for us really a lot of times eliminates pushback to a negative extent, because they understand the choices that they make have an impact on their minds and their bodies. And I just think that is so important for us to incorporate as parents, as homeschoolers, like just parents in general, that your choices impact your reality, right? If you want to feel groggy, congested, and have stomach pains, then eat dairy, right? If you want to not experience delayed gratification, then play those games that like give you quick dopamine hits, right? They understand their choices have an impact on their life. Anyways, that's another topic, not necessarily restart homeschooling, but I see in general, I just get less pushback. One, my kids know I'm serious. Two, they understand their choices have consequences, both good and bad. And I think that's something that is a gift we can give to our children. And doesn't have to be something intangible like screen time and brain growth. It can be something very that should be happening daily. All right, let's see here. Okay, so I have one more question submitted by Jody that I'd love to get to. If you're just joining me, we are going to be wrapping up our Ask Me Anything for the new homeschool year shortly. So if you have a question, please drop it in the chat. I am going to share Jody's question and talk a little bit about neurodivergency. If you feel like you have a kid who's differently wired, please put, let me know in the chat and give me like a little explanation, because neurodivergency, can be all over the board. Some diagnosed, some undiagnosed. So give me just a sec. Okay. So Jody shared with me, she has a neurodivergent child, and sleeping is very intermittent. And I've shared with moms whose kiddos struggle with sleep, and sometimes they're their best in the middle of the night. I've talked to families like my kids have migraines, and that keeps them from going to school, and I have to sometimes send them to school, and then they're like having a migraine and they're not absorbing any of the information, and I'm like, well, that's a really good reason to homeschool. So sometimes homeschooling isn't that you have a different philosophy than traditional school. Sometimes it's completely based on the way your kid's wired. And so Jody's kiddo can't follow a schedule because the sleep patterns are so inconsistent. And so what I encouraged Jody is she wants to create a space for her kiddo to be independent and to love learning. Whether you have a neurodivergent kid or not, like that's a great goal for all of us as parents to have. An independent learner and love learning. And so when you can't create a schedule because of health struggles, what I want you to do is to start hunting for patterns where they show up well, right? What worked? Start looking for what's working, because it's so easy for us to focus on what's not working, and it is important to evaluate that now and then, but we want to be on the hunt for what's working with our neurodivergent kids, which can really ebb and flow. I think my neurodivergent kiddo is in the middle of a growth spurt. Yesterday was, like I said before, not fun. It was not fun. He's feeling better today, but I also know if he's having leg pains, he's feeling like he's growing, or he's like, you kind of have that general malaise. You're like, I just don't feel good. It's not like one thing. I just don't feel well. Our day is going to be different because it so deeply impacts him. So, because he's a sensitive child, and it's okay to be sensitive. It's okay to be differently wired. I'm so glad I can homeschool you, is to create an environment that's bendable to the way you're wired. And so if you have a neurodivergent kiddo, I think it's really important that we are looking for, one, patterns, positive patterns, like what's working well right now. What's working well right now, again, because that can ebb and flow. What worked this week might not work next week. And the other thing is to really redefine productivity, because like I am a type A person. Like I love checking a box. I'm like, oh, that task is complete. Like it brings me a weird amount of joy. And so, especially if you're kind of a type A, or you have been measuring the success of your homeschool by checking the boxes, and it's going to be hard for you. But I really want you to redefine productivity and look for progress. Just look for progress. And sometimes progress means that your kid was happy during homeschool time. Like they enjoyed it. And that's progress. Maybe they didn't learn a new math skill, but they enjoyed the process. Whew, check that box. That's great. There was progress. So look for positive patterns and progress. That is so important with our neurodivergent kiddos. We did this with my oldest. This is Amanda sharing. He runs a YouTube and Twitch at night. He has sponsors. Oh, wow, that's so cool. But we took what works for him and made his work independent. It was weird, but works now. Yeah. And he's 15, right? Kiddos, when there's like this, like 8, 9 is an interesting threshold to enter, because it's like they're still little, but they're not. Because then once we hit like 10, 11, 12, this is where like we're beginning to understand them. They're beginning to understand themselves. And we really want to be encouraging independence if we hadn't, up until this point. And then once we cross that like 14, 15, 16 threshold, we really want our kids to be able to be self-sufficient and let them fail at their self-sufficiency in that safe environment while they're still at home. And I think that's something that can be scary, right? It's like Amanda said, it was weird, it was different. We want them to have the space, especially as homeschoolers, to try to be an adult and fail at it and still have the safety of home, right? And I think about, my kiddos. I saw this really great graphic. I just want to share it with you. So I'm a mom of boys, if you didn't know. I have no girls. I say I'm woman enough for our household. Silly me, but it's true. So there, we've talked a lot about dating, and you might have different feelings about dating. But my husband and I agree. We're like, well, dating is for finding somebody you're going to spend the rest of your life with. And unless you can support that person, then you don't need to be dating. Like, if you're going to spend this person like the rest of your life and you want to have kids, she needs to have the option of being able to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, if she wants to work, if she wants to like work and be a stay-at-home mom, great. But she should have the option to fully take care of your children 100%. And so we're on this like fence of, well, first you need to like make money and have savings. That's step number one. But I saw this graphic. It was on Instagram. It's from a guy, honest_fatherhood. And he said, his kid asked him, Dad, when will I be old enough to date? He said, when you do anything your mother asks without complaining, and your regular chores without being asked. When you can regulate your temper with your little brothers and influence them to rise in maturity. Then you'll need a marketable skill you can offer the world in exchange for an amount of money it takes to support 2 people. By then, you'll probably have a phone, your algorithms and search history must be one you are proud of. You can't have that young lady standing against unfair comparisons. Bluntly, that's talking about porn. And then do all that and we can talk. Until then, you're really just wasting time, and you'd be better served using that time to put in the work to become a better man for the young woman you actually have a shot at marrying. All these things are evidence that shifts have been made from boyhood to manhood, shifts from being the one who must be protected and provided for to being the one capable of protecting and providing. And I just really loved that because we want to raise men. Like, I have 4 boys. I want to raise men who can take care of their wives and their families and not be a boy, not just financially, but emotionally, and not be a boy, right? I want you to be a man. And so anyways, I brought that up because I don't remember. Sorry, on the top of my mind, as we close down here, we were doing things different and having our kids transition from, transition into adulthood in that safe experience of at home, being at home still so they can fail. Because I don't know how much I failed. Gosh, I don't even know how much I failed. I don't want to count the times. And I didn't have that safety net. It would have been nice to have that safety net, and I didn't have it. Thanks, Amanda. Don't get me wrong, being neurodivergent, he does need some reminding, does fail sometimes, but it is doing what I wanted it to and is failing and having that safety net. Yeah, absolutely. Let them fail. They're going to fail anyways. Give them a safe space to do that so they can figure themselves out. I really think like that is one of the biggest gifts we can give our kids for self-education. When you can fail and figure yourself out with that safety net, you're just going to be so much better off when you are a real adult. Yeah, help them learn to fail. Absolutely. Because they're gonna fail. So we might as well fail well and make sure it moves the dial. Exactly. I always like to tell people to fail forward. Fail forward. You're going to fail fast and fail forward. Like, oh, this didn't work. Don't linger in that. Figure out, okay, this worked. This didn't work. Okay, let's stop doing that. Let's do this thing that was working. And then fail fast. And honestly, that has been the biggest thing of how I've been able to grow quickly as an individual, which sometimes I'm like, that's not that quickly. But when I think about where I was and where I am, even the past 4 years, not the past 8 years. Oh, wow. Yeah, that was a lot of growth. That's because I failed fast and I failed forward. I didn't get consumed with all the problems. Okay, here's the problem. How do we solve it? And let's try this, right? Love it. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody who joined me live, anybody who's watching the replay. I've absolutely loved these conversations. If you would like more encouragement from me, I really want to share again my inner circle. That's my email list, where I truly do try to pour into you every single week. And I have like book recommendations on there, like a mini blog stuff for you to try, and all the events that I am doing. Currently everything stays active and new in there. I really want to encourage you to join that if you're not on it already. And then after all this talking we did today, hopefully today helps you breathe a little easier. But if you're realizing like, man, I need a little more support, like regular support after today, I want to encourage you to come check out the Homeschool Launch Lab. It's ongoing coaching and a community for homeschool moms who don't want another reset that falls apart in 2 weeks. So inside the lab, I share my proven process to build your homeschool in just 14 days or less. And that sets you up for success. And then from there, we do the failing forward and fast. We fail forward and we fail fast. And we tweak we tweak what's not working and we keep what is working, right? Because there's so many ebbs and flows to the seasons. So no pressure to join. But if you don't want to do this homeschool thing alone, I think that might be a good next step for you. So I will put that in the chat. I guess I didn't get the link. Oh, I thought I had the link up. Let me grab it real quick for you before we sign off. It's confidenthomeschoolmoms.com/launch lab. There it is. All right, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. It's been wonderful and so many good questions. And this will live here on YouTube. You can come back and listen to it anytime. All right. Bye, guys.